Warren Fiscal Court, a special call meeting for the presentation of proposals for solid waste and recycling and inquiries from the Fiscal Court is now called to order, January 19th, 2022. Welcome everyone, glad to have you all here. I want to particularly welcome Esquire Mark Young, who is going to lead us in prayer and lead us in the pledge immediately following. Esquire Young.
Thank you, sir. Please bow with me. Lord, we thank you so much for the blessing of this day, for the opportunity that we have to meet in a body such as this to discuss things pertaining to our county. God, we pray that everything that's put before us today, we will take into our hearts, minds, and the decisions that we make are based on those that benefit all of Warren County. God, we thank you so much for our county, for our state. We're so blessed. We're mindful too, Lord, of your Son, who sacrificed his life that we might someday have a hope of a home eternal with you in heaven. We thank you so much for that sacrifice, and it's in Jesus' name that we offer this prayer. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Esquire Young.
Yes, ma'am.
Esquire Gorman.
Here.
Esquire McWhorter. Esquire Payne. Esquire Lawrence. Esquire Cummings.
Here. I'm here, John.
And Esquire Young.
Okay. We're going to dispense with the reading of the minutes till our next regularly scheduled meeting. First of all, I want to introduce fiscal court members here. If I could, just if you all would just go around the room, starting over here with Esquire Payne. Just introduce yourself and the district that you represent.
Tony Payne, District 3.
Tom Lawrence, District 2.
Doug Gorman, District 1.
Ron Cummings, District 6.
Mark Young, District 5.
Rex McWhorter, District 4.
Okay. We also have Doc Kalin, who has apparently stepped out of the room right now, but oh, there he's back here in the back, who serves on the Solid Waste Committee and has for over 25 years. And so we have a lot of continuity and understanding in this group. I also want to introduce a good friend who is the County Judge Executive of Barron County, who's here with us today, Michael Hale. Judge Hale, we're awfully proud to have you here with us. And also he has a guest with him, Jamie Cummings, who is Emergency Management, Solid Waste Director. Okay, that makes more sense. Okay, all right. Proud to have you here with us too, Jamie. I think he's just here to primarily see what we're doing wrong.
That'd probably be easy.
So I'm sure he'll have a constructive day today. That we're proud to have you. Also, Stan Reagan, who's the Director of Environmental Services here in Warren County and has been for over 25 years as well. And of course, Deputy Judge Executive Marie Smith, County Attorney Amy Milliken, and Sean Alcott, who is our resident solid waste environmental specialist and our attorney, and has been our attorney since the very first franchises that we awarded in 1995. So You have people that understand the issues here, and we're glad to have all of you all here with us. Things have changed since 1995 in the collection business and recycling and everything else. Today, we're going to hear comments on solid waste and recycling. And Ms. Alcott, do you want to give any instructions or?
Before, can I ask that we should also introduce Josh Moore, who's also on the committee?
Josh Moore is hiding back here in the back. Josh Moore is the head of Public Works, is also on the Solid Waste Committee. Failed to introduce him last night, and he said that's okay, he's used to being abused, and no, we're awfully proud. Josh does a great job and is, really adds a lot of professionalism to this effort. Ms. Alcott.
Okay. I believe Stan is going to be acting as our moderator as he was last evening. We have an order on the agenda for the order that the presentations will take place. I don't really have any other comments before we can get started. Jump in. All
righty. We will allow up to 20 minutes for every proposal. Mr. Reagan, do you want to lay out the conduct of the meeting?
Yes, each proposer will have 20 minutes per presentation maximum. You can take less time than that, of course, but at the 3-minute remaining mark, I'll raise this red piece of paper. That gives you time to wind up your presentation, and then the alarm will sound on the glorious iPhone. Fiscal Court, following that, will be allowed to ask questions, or the Solid Waste Committee on their behalf, up to 15 minutes per proposal. We hope to get through this today and learn a lot more from you all, and hope that we will come up with a good program. Thank you all for being here.
Okay. Mr. Reagan, do you want to go through the order of presentations to begin the?
We have 9 proposals total to hear from. We've broken these down into 3 categories: recycling only, commercial and industrial with no residential services, residential, commercial, and industrial services. The first proposer is Recyclops, followed by BG Dumpster, Shelby Recycling, TPM Inc., also followed by Blue Moon Sanitation, Republic Services, Scott Waste, Green River Waste, and Taylor Sanitation.
Okay. Recyclops, who's representing this company here? Yes, sir. Please state your name, introduce yourself.
My name is Dennis Wise. I'm Vice President of Sales, Business Development, and Government Affairs at Recyclops. I'd like to start this morning by thanking you, Judge Buchanan, and all the magistrates and staff and all the guests here this morning for allowing me this opportunity to present. And I have a small kind of introductory presentation to let you all know who we are as a company, because really nobody here, I think, is familiar with us. Chris, could you pull up that deck? No, I'm just leaving. So I have some materials here. This is basically the presentation that's going to be on the screens here in a minute. There's a couple of extra copies here if somebody wanted, and some business cards of mine if anybody needed to get in contact with me. I think all my contact information is on my, well, I know it is on the proposal. So in the interest of informing everybody kind of in general who we are before we get into the nuts and bolts of our proposal, Recyclops, first and foremost, we are an environmental firm. And by saying that, I mean we only deal with recycling. We're not a waste collection company. We don't own any landfills. We simply collect and then manage, sometimes store, and then get a disposition on those recyclable materials. So if they're marketable, they're going back into the circular economy. Go ahead, Chris, change to the next slide. So who we are. We'll get into some of this, the details of this when we go through what you've requested in your package, but we are a public benefit corporation in the state of Delaware. So being a public benefit corporation, we have to have kind of a third bottom line, if you will. So not only do we have to perform for our investors, for our employees, and for our customers, but also we have to provide some type of positive impact for humanity. And the way that we do that and justify that is our recycling programs. It's a very unique model when you think about what you're here listening to today in terms of how people are going to collect, manage, and ultimately decide where your waste and your recyclables are going. We use a model that many people, kind of label as Uber-like, and we set our company up on an Uber model. We did take, some executives and some managers from Uber, so they helped us do this, but there's some very important operational and some legal kind of considerations in doing that. On the operational side, the core business of what we do is that we use independently contracted drivers to use their own vehicles to pick up recyclables from people's homes. So what that does is it cuts out tons of overhead, right? So we're not having to buy $400,000 vehicles that are super heavy and tear up the streets, and we're also not having to carry all that overhead of full-time employees. Those are two huge cost factors, and that's why you see so many municipalities cutting their recycling programs back or canceling them altogether across the country. And I'll talk about that in a minute as well. So you've got those factors on the operational side of why we're set up this way. And then on the legal side, we set up our business. If you think about Uber, just about every municipality in the United States has on their books ordinances that look at livery and look at taxis, right? So Uber and Lyft came in and they disrupted the industry and they set up a model that would not offend those ordinances. We've done the same thing on the recycling collection side of things so that we don't offend ordinances. So we use that model, and then not only does that present a new business model that can allow us to go into places that can't afford to have recycling programs anymore, but it also offers some meaningful employment opportunities for people in the gig economy. And I'll just take a second to talk about that for a second, because that is also kind of a new and unique type of industry in America nowadays. So these folks are looking for flexibility, and they're looking for well-paying jobs, and they're always part-time. These folks may have multiple gig jobs, if you will, but our positions pay on average about $25 per hour. And again, we like to have one driver for about every, it depends on the routes, but for about every 45 to 60 homes. But we like to have two drivers on the bench behind them. Because with these gig economy folks, you can't count on them being there every week at the same time, right? So you have to have that backup. Next slide, please. So we currently operate in 18 states and over 170 different municipalities. And next slide, please. And we've spent a lot of the last year and a half going around to the 200 plus municipalities that have had to curtail their recycling programs. And we've given the opportunity to their residents to be able to recycle again. Now it's a much different model. It's not mandated. It's not paid for by that municipality. This is a subscription service. Not unlike Netflix, not unlike Amazon Prime, not unlike DoorDash or Uber. The folks that want this type of service pay for this type of service. And the other thing that you'll see is the folks that pay for this type of service also do it correctly. So it's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, you have lower participation, but on the other hand, you have very, very clean recycling stream, almost zero contamination. And we'll talk about that when we get into the nuts and bolts of the presentation as well. Go ahead and click the next slide. I'm not talking to them directly, but from a customer standpoint, a customer viewpoint, we offer this subscription, and you're going to see some pricing in here that reflects our standard national pricing, not what is in the proposal, because you'll see that when we talk about that. But these folks come to our website and they say, we'd like to have this service in our area. And so Bowling Green happened to be one of those places last year that had residents coming to our place. I reached out to the city and I reached out to the county, and Stan at that time had told me, we are going to be going through this process. So we said, fine, we'll do that. People come in, they say we'd like our service. We start to investigate what's going on in that area. Why are so many people coming in? And when we justify the fact that they don't have curbside service and there isn't any competition in that place, we will come in and offer our services. Now, it's rare that we go through this type of process. Out of 170 cities, there's probably only 15 to 20 that we've gone through an RFP process. Because we are a subscription service, because we are an online and virtual type of service, we don't normally go through those channels. We just offer our services. Unless, in this case, it was stated that this is a must. You have to go through that. Next slide, please. So folks come in, they sign up, and it's very, on our core service, which is what we're suggesting here in our proposal, they pay $12 a month. Not here, it's going to be, I believe it's $9 a month in the city. They get custom bags that they put their recyclables into. They do not have to separate the recyclables except when it comes to glass. So you have a blue bag that has all of your mixed recyclables, your plastics, your papers, your metals, and then you have a yellow bag that's for glass. We ask that folks flatten their cardboard because it just takes up too much room in the bags. So they flatten their cardboard, they put their bags on top. It's every other week service, and it's just about as easy as it can be. It's all achieved online. From our driver's perspective, and we'll talk about that when we get into it too, again, this is all virtual. We find folks on gig economy platforms, and they work with our proprietary software, our driver app, and things like that, and they're routed to appropriate places. Next slide, please, Chris. And this is just a corny graphic about how it works. Next slide, please. And again, that pricing is much different in this proposal that we'll get to in a minute. Next slide, please. And so, I've talked to these things at the introduction. This is why we exist. We only exist where there is a need for an at-home type of option, right? So you've got new mothers, you've got the infirmed, you've got elderly, and you've got folks that just don't have time. Or maybe it's something as easy as, I don't want to mess up my vehicle hauling my recyclables somewhere. But where there is not an at-home collection option, we will investigate and offer that. We do not compete with municipal programs unless there is the rare occasion where some municipal programs are actually telling people to separate the materials and put them into carts, but one truck comes down the road, picks it up, and brings it to the landfill. So, people figure out things like that pretty quickly and pretty easily. So in those situations where collected recyclables are actually being landfilled or burned, and there is a huge desire for residents to actually recycle the materials, we will go in and talk to the municipality about providing our service for those folks. Next slide. I think that's it. These are some of the folks we reach out to when we talk about setting up a program, all the folks that could potentially be interested in recycling programs. And the final slide is just my contact information. Okay, thank you. Now let's get into the nuts and bolts. So the way that we responded to the RFP was we just took your structure and we just went line by line and kind of answered it. So what we did here is we wanted to offer our services on your pricing option number 1, which is residential curbside recycling collection in the city of Bowling Green, an exclusive franchise. Again, curbside recycling, collection and management outside of the city, exclusive, and then thirdly, outside of the city and non-exclusive. If there's any questions, do you hold questions to the end, or do you do it in the middle of the presentation?
Oh, we'll hold them to the end.
To the end?
If you want, if you have questions now.
Presentation, not to the end of this meeting, correct?
No, just his
No.
presentation.
Yeah,
Okay. So you can see in general information there, our contact information, and I want to bring your attention to attachments number 1, 2, and 3. In terms of talking about, especially since I spoke to this up front in the introduction to who we are as a company. We are a public benefit corporation, and this is something that we just achieved in the past year. So we were originally incorporated as an LLC in the state of Utah. Our corporate base is in Salt Lake City, Utah. And in 2021, we converted to a C Corp, and then also to a public benefit corporation, which is what we strive to be. Our organizational structure, I gave you a look at the organizational chart minus some of our divisions because it really wasn't applicable here, but we also have creative. We have a completely division of creative. We have a marketing division, and then we also have a new initiatives division. And in that, it does come into play here when I've heard people make comments last night and thinking about what we do as a company. So in our creative initiatives, we have partnerships with Novelis that we're working on, partnerships with Eastman Chemical that we're working on, that at some point over the next year or so, I think is going to make a big splash in terms of how we're going to take some of those recyclables and make a difference, especially when it comes to plastic. We all know that aluminum, you heard the comments last night, most of you know, aluminum can easily be recycled over and over again. But working with Eastman and their new processing plans, and they're building a big plant in the Kingsport area, they're going to be able to take those materials back to its base level. And that's going to create almost an infinite loop. It's not quite as inexpensive as aluminum, but anyway, I just wanted to let you know that this is not our complete organization. So in taking a look at that plan, we can talk about some of the key people very briefly. Ryan Smith is our founder and CEO. He is a very young man. He's only 30 now, and he's won multiple awards for 30 under 30 and things like that from Forbes magazine. And it's because of his passion for recycling. And that's why I'm here, and that's why this company exists. When he went to college, he saw, I think it was his sophomore year, he moved into a location that did not have recycling. He's like, I've grown up my whole life, I've had recycling, this doesn't make sense. And he started to learn more and more about the recycling industry, and just felt that when he dug into it and saw that there's over 50 million Americans that don't have access to recycling, he's like, this doesn't make any sense. So he made that his life's work and his passion. And I say life's work, he's only 30 years old, but it's been 10 years that 11 years that he's been working in this area. Mike Bishop is our Chief Operating Officer. He has held positions like this across the globe. He's worked internationally. He's worked at some very, very large firms. And he's very competent and drives our overall operational team. Paula Michelle Andrade is our head of marketing. And if you looked at underneath the organizational chart where I gave you some brief snippets on their experience and things like that, she's actually located in Spain, which is, that's just how our world is now. Everybody works remote. Our company is entirely remote, and our head of marketing lives in Spain. Dennis Wise, as you know, I've already introduced myself. I've spent the last 10 plus years working in this exact space, and by that I mean in the municipal space, dealing with solid waste reduction and recycling program creation and management. Previously, I was with a firm called Waste Zero, and we did a lot of revolutionary work with bag-based pay-as-you-throw type of things. And now, being strictly in recycling, I am 100% wearing a green hat all the time. I'm a good guy. And I say that because my initial foray into solid waste immediately out of graduate school was working for a Beltway Bandit consulting firm in Washington, D.C. back in the mid-'80s that only sited and financed garbage burning plants. So I didn't know what I was getting into, but I found out very quickly that I was wearing a black hat at that time. So, and then you can see our brief snippets on our head of people operations, which is pertinent to this bid and proposal, our controller, and our operations director. They all have vast experience, and people operations is really key in this proposal because slightly different from the models you're used to where you hire a full-time employee and they're fairly stable. In this world, you do have quite a bit of moving and managing because these pieces, these gig economy folks, they like flexibility. So there's a lot of moving parts that go along with that. Then we get into your question of experience and program experience. You can see, I think I listed, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 different places that we're operating. We've never stopped operating anywhere. We've never had any problems. Is that my 3-minute cue? I need to fly through this. Our closest location that we operate in is Clarksville, Tennessee. But we have a lot of operations in Tennessee, especially in the Nashville area with Rutherford County. It's one of our biggest operating locations. You can see in our program experience that not only do we do standard at-home recycling collection, but we do some other specialties like organic diaper collection, food delivery, shipping materials collection, hard-to-recycle items, and recycling education programs. Let me direct you to financial responsibility. I think that all of this area is redacted except for, let me point your attention to attachment number 5, which is a letter from our insurer that we could certainly get a surety bond for this project. And then you have the references for business are there, and let's get into the program. So obviously we're not bidding on waste collection, we're only bidding on the recycling program. And we are offering a complete turnkey option for the county. So the county will not have to do anything with recycling. The only thing that county will do is receive a revenue stream, a payment of a franchise fee from our company to you. And that is covered in a couple of minutes. Again, our model is a different model. We use custom bags. And in terms of how that works, they put it out on their recycling day. Check for contamination. Number 1 is they can see in that bag because they're translucent. There's a blue bag for recyclables, a yellow bag for glass, and they can see through that bag and see if there's recyclables. I mean, if there's contamination in there. Check number 2 is when we debag the materials, we also can see if there's contamination in there. Community education and communication, I'll direct your attention to attachment number 8. Those are just some examples of different types of materials that we're constantly sending out to folks. We're constantly educating and informing folks, making sure if there's any changes in program, making sure that they understand what is acceptable to be recycled. And in terms of that turnkey situation, we collect, we aggregate, and then we ship. And we take the materials to the waste management facility in Nashville. We have a wonderful relationship with them. We have a wonderful relationship with all of our MRFs because our stream is so clean. That would negatively affect our business model. Is that 1 minute?
No, that's a dead.
You can finish up.
I can finish up? It would negatively affect our business model if we had contamination and if we started having issues with our MRFs because our pricing would go up and our model would be in distress. So it's very important that contamination is held at a minimum. And with that, I think that you can see the rest. You saw our attachment regarding insurance, and you may have some questions about that because we are suggesting that we don't need the level of insurance that, some of the requirements for the larger trucks and things like that. And in terms of the rate, I wanted to make sure that I address that publicly. So the rate for exclusivity in Bowling Green is $8.50 per month for an opt-in program. It's not mandatory, it's not mandated, and a $5 glass option. If for some reason the county went to a mandated program, we would drop that rate down to $7 per home, and the home is defined as in your bid package language, and a $5 glass option. Outside of the county, being exclusive would be $10.50 per household with a $5 glass option. Again, if it was mandatory, it would be $8.50 per home with a $5 glass option. And non-exclusive, outside the county, would be $12.50 per home with a $5 glass option. And if it was mandated, $10.50 per home with a $5 glass option. Thank you for the extra time.
That sounds pretty good. Mr. Gorman?
So, I saw in there, of course, and you just mentioned you take to the Murph in Nashville. Where are you, I guess I'm more interested too, where's all this stored and sorted?
So we will either work with the county or a private landowner or a commercial entity that would provide us space to be able to have an aggregation point. And that aggregation point is simply the place where that we can pack a truck, a trailer or a truck.
Like a substation kind of.
So
Right.
you pick this up, then transport it there to wherever you decide what that is, sort it, put it on the truck and take it to Nashville.
Right. We don't really sort it. We don't
Or
do a
not
full
sort it,
sort.
I mean, you would transfer it from the individual vehicles to a larger vehicle to take to Nashville.
Correct. And in the bid response, you can see that there's three ways that we do that, depending upon how large the load is.
And how long have you been in Clarksville?
We've been operating in Clarksville, I think, since, I want to say October
Okay.
2021.
2021. But we've been, and that's why they're not on the reference list, because they were so new. But Rutherford County, we've been operating there for a couple of years.
Okay, so let's talk about Rutherford County with, what kind of issues have you had for, employees and turnover from that standpoint?
So we really don't track employee turnover, and I just have to make sure that I state this correctly so that, I don't get in trouble. So we don't have, our drivers are not employees.
Right.
They're independent contractors.
Contractor turnover.
And we don't track contractor turnover too much, because it is such a live or, a current situation. Gig economy folks are constantly making decisions for themselves. They may decide that they work for Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, and Recyclops today, but tomorrow they might only work for 2 of them, or next week they might work for a 5th one. So that isn't a stat that's really that important to us, just because we always want to make sure that we have the bench, we have a driver and we have a bench full.
What percentage of the stuff you guys pick up stays out of the landfill? And what percentage goes into the landfill? Is any portion of it end up in landfill after you guys get it?
It's a negligible percentage, because our stream is so clean. Like, you think about the difference between programs, a mandated program and a subscription program. And I think I referenced this up top. It's a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, our company, our mission statement is to get as many people recycling in the United States as possible. When you think about a mandated program, you're going to get higher participation, but you're also going to get higher contamination. So on the subscription side, you definitely have lower participation. I'll be honest with you, participation here in the county is probably going to be between 10 and absolute top, I would say, is probably absolute top 30%. I don't think we'd see 30%, because you're talking about people, paying to recycle, and not everybody's willing to do that. But because they do it right, and they don't throw trash into their recycling. So, we are starting from a point that is very negligible to begin with, and then when we get to that place, it's rare that we have to throw things away.
If I understand this correctly, somebody in Bowling would give, if they wanted to go with just recyclables, it'd be $8.50 a month. If they wanted to also recycle glass, they'd go up another $5 to $13.50.
That's correct.
But they don't have to do the glass if they
They do not have to do glass. It's an option.
All right, so my question is that a weekly pickup or bi-weekly pickup? I just want to make sure
I apologize if I didn't make that clear. It's every other week. So it's not bi-monthly, it's every other week. So, because in some months, they get picked up 3 times, right?
26 times a year.
26 times a year.
just wanna make
Now, I will tell you this, that if you do select us and you allow us to offer our full scope of services, there is an option for folks to get weekly pickup. It's just not what we proposed here. And with your permission, if you said, well, we've got a business in town, or we've got Mrs. Hale's grandchildren, they are heavy recyclers, and they want to pick up every week. That's something that we would offer, with your permission.
How about commercial pickup? I'm sure, I'm not following that. Have you
So-
quoted that?
So multifamily
Okay.
and commercial, we also pick up. But on the multifamily, we don't change what we do. It's still a bag situation. So we would work with that, multifamily, property manager or director or whatever, say, this is where the bags need to go, and they'd be picked up there. On the commercial side, we do not bring in loader trucks or anything like that. We work with those commercial entities to say, this is how we will manage this. So, one of the drivers might show up with his pickup truck and a trailer, and they're picking up tons of cardboard from any given business. Like, we do a lot of coffee houses and things like that, right? There's lots of cardboard and things like that, so.
There's a bigger cost to commercial, I'm assuming.
What's that?
More expensive?
It's a different option because it's based on volume. What we propose today is 100% residential, and it is, there is the small business and commercial component to it, but the pricing is completely different. It's negotiable versus this is offered to you at this price, and if you would like to have your recyclables picked up at home, this is how you do it.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
You said your business is strictly web-based,
Yes.
so I take that to mean, there will be no physical storefront here in Bowling Green.
That is correct. Yeah. All of our customer service, customer experience is handled virtually, and those people are actually all over the country. I think I put some of those folks in the key personnel.
And the sorting takes place outside of the county, right? You put it in a truck and take it to a sorting station elsewhere.
The Waste Management MRF in Nashville, Tennessee.
So the area where you would be collecting and debagging and consolidating the loads from individual drivers, would that be within the county or not?
The debagging does not take place in the county, just the consolidation of the bags and the material to be packaged into the transportation vehicle taken to Nashville.
Okay, so everything remains intact in the bag until it reaches the MRF?
Well, some things, the cardboard and things like that, but yes, however it's picked up is how it's transferred.
But you would have have some location within the county to consolidate the loads?
To aggregate, right?
Okay, to
So
aggregate.
let's say there's 15 drivers on any given day. They come back to that aggregation point, and sometimes they have to come back to that aggregation point multiple times, depending upon what that driver, what that gig economy driver is interested in doing. Do they want to pick up 80 homes today, or do they only want to pick up 40 homes? Do they want to pick up 120 homes?
Right. Obviously, not here, don't have any operations in here, so you would be starting from ground up. How long will it take to become operational?
Again, that's a beauty of our business model, is it's almost immediate. So it would take us, we usually ask for 3 weeks because we need to get drivers aligned and things like that. But and we also we do ask for help from that given municipality to help us educate and inform all of the residents, all of the citizens, that this new meaningful environmental program option is available. So we do ask for help in those, and that help comes in the form of websites, social media platforms of varying types and things like that. So yeah, help with the media, things like that.
Any other questions? Good presentation.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
everybody.
Clean.
Would you like me to leave this information right here?
Please.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. BG dumpster. Someone,
Morning.
morning.
Judge, I appreciate you having us up here and magistrates. So I moved to Bowling Green in 1997. So this is my 25th year here in our area. I currently live in Franklin, Kentucky, right on the Warren-Simpson line. And we have a farm there, and we have 2 or 3 separate businesses. I've been in construction before I came to Bowling Green, and have been in construction ever since. I'm a registered builder here in town, the South Central Builders Association. I've been with the Builder Association about 18, 19 years. And so I've kind of coming at the dumpster and waste business from 2 perspectives. I have engaged roll-off dumpsters and waste removal and demolition companies as a contractor before I got into the dumpster business. And when we originally got in the dumpster business, our intent was to just buy a truck and a few dumpsters to service our own waste from our own projects. And then things evolved pretty quickly, and we became a full-time hauler, and it became a second business for us, and has actually to a point eclipsed our small construction business. And so we run them parallel together, and there's a lot of overlap as far as our management from our office standpoint, and our staff and our drivers, and we have been able to utilize guys from our construction company to help grow carefully and cautiously our other business in the dumpster business, and so we've evolved into a small local hauler. And through the years, we've had the blessing of working with other haulers and getting to know the other haulers here locally. And while we're competitors, I consider many of them friends, and a few of them adversaries, but we still laugh about that. And
Can you name those mines?
that's,
Okay, all right.
anyway, we're tight. So anyway, my proposal is in response to the RFP as best as I could interpret how we could fit ours into it. And I say that carefully and respectfully. 11 years ago, I think in 2012, you all added us as a franchise hauler. At the time, we had 4 or 5 dumpsters and 1 dump trailer behind a 1-ton truck. And we were hauling small roll-off dumpsters for ourselves and a couple of subcontractors pretty much. And at the time, I still didn't understand the purpose of the RFP as it qualified to us. And even 10 years later, I looked back at our current franchise agreement and our current RFP, or the current RFP compared to the old RFP, and it's very similar. The language is very similar. And I guess our business model, we have always seen it as kind of outside of the general waste removal for residences and businesses and industry. We have no annual contracts of any kind with anybody for their continuous waste removal. So I don't contract and put anybody into a contract. I don't provide permanently placed equipment, those kinds of things. And so we provide, I guess, a beyond the curb type service for residences and for demolition and for people needing to remove waste. We operate in 6 counties. Warren County is not the only place that we're in. We operate in 2 counties in Tennessee, and we have authorities down there to haul. And so we have a couple trucks full-time in Tennessee, and we have 4 trucks full-time in South Central Kentucky. And we have well over 200 roll-offs rented out right now. And as far as our beyond the curb service, what we try to provide is the things that fall between the cracks in the residential market and world, where They can't put it out on the curb, and they can't put it in the 96-gallon tote that they have as part of their normal waste hauling, and or somebody is, you know, got maybe a landowner or apartment owner or somebody trying to do a cleanup, somebody doing an emergency cleanup. We've been very involved, as you all know, as many of the other haulers have been involved in helping with the tornado stuff. Some of it's been volunteer, some of it is obviously on contract to help clean up. But we're involved in our community and give back in the best way that we can, and we appreciate the opportunities that we have. I would say that our dumpster business as a C&D recycling, hauling, temporary roll-off service is much, much different, and I believe should be considered much different in how you all handle it and manage it. And I have no problem with it being handled and managed, and I think there needs to be oversight, and even small detailed oversight over the temporary roll-off business. I'm not trying to suggest that we are allowed to just work outside of the rules or outside of a parameter of oversight. I think it's a good thing. I would say that the RFP, the way I answered it in our proposal was two-part. One, to very directly answer the details of the RFP as a commercial industrial hauler, including dumpster service for an apartment complex or something, which would be residential, but falls under the commercial for over 4 units. And so we outlined that in our part one and tried to, and gave a price schedule, a price sheet in there for that and what we would be able to offer. However, then I addressed in a second part, which wasn't specifically asked for, but I felt like it needed better definition. And so to include everything that was commented on in our pre-bid meetings and in the emails that were sent out, I tried to carefully understand what y'all may be seeking to include and to be fair about it. And so I recognized the roll-off, temporary roll-offs and C&D as one connected service separate from the commercial industrial. And the way that I disconnected the two was basically a permanent versus temporary. And so that's how we have typically run our business, is permanent versus temporary. And there is a lot of overlap that is nearly impossible to manage in that when you separate that way between waste streams. So regardless of waste stream, is the way we approached our proposal, is for y'all to try and look at it from our perspective, that if we commit to a fee on temporary roll-offs and on C&D roll-offs, that they be seen as two totally separate entities. And maybe that fee structure is different for the two. Maybe it's the same. I'm okay with there being a fee on the total hauling, whether it's the temporary roll-offs and C&D and combining it all together. I have several issues with that, comments that I would like y'all to take into account if you combine it all and you include all of construction waste. Having been in construction for 25 years and rented dumpsters for years, and I'm still in construction, and I have projects in 3 states right now, and so I rent dumpsters every day from other companies. Those dollars are directly that I spend on roll-off dumpsters directly impact my bottom line on a construction project, and so I'm sympathetic to that with all of our local customers and other builders and contractors. They bid jobs and projects. They have an expectation, a line item they plug in for roll-off dumpster service, whether it's from me or from one of my competitors. And those numbers are reflected in their pricing schedules for their customers. And so this would be a new thing that has not been included in their cost countywide before. And so I would ask that you would consider that and the implications that you can imagine that would be included in raising those costs to cover fees and other things. One of those costs that comes to mind is the new insurance requirements that y'all included in the RFP of a $10 million total liability and or vehicular insurance. We currently, as a small company, have, I think, $3 million coverage, and so we reached out to the insurance company to gain, to get that provided, and there's a letter included in our proposal that covers that, should you decide to enact that. However, that comes at a cost of almost $30,000 a year additional insurance just for that umbrella cost to be covered to go from 3 to 10. And that was just priced from one company through our normal insurance company through Cincinnati. However, I mean, we would price it out everywhere else, but generally our agent said that we're looking at least 20,000 and most likely on the 30,000 range. And we don't have any accidents. We don't have anything on our record that causes it to be abnormally high. That's just the extra cost. And so we do 1,000 roll-offs in Warren County a year on average right now. And so if you divide the 30,000 into there, we're talking about $30 a unit every single haul that we would just because of that one thing we'd have to raise. Also, if we were to add a 10% fee to the roll-off dumpster business for C&D, and you do that on the gross, if you have a $450 roll-off, that adds $45 in cost that we have to pass on. So you add that 45 and the 30, you're at $75 real quickly. And then to offset the fact that that's on gross receipts, you have to add a little bit more to be able to come out with exactly the same amount as where we're at right now. We work on a pretty tight margin like most haulers. And so basically roll-off dumpsters would go up $100 a haul as soon as this went into place, if it did. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. The main thing is that if it is, that it is very carefully crafted into everyone's contract to where it is fair across the board, and that there's an enforcement of the ability for the court to enforce on anybody else that is not acting inside the franchises. And I know that there's language in our current contract that says that if you're loading, and the RFP also mentions this, if you're collecting, transporting and disposing of solid waste, then you have to get a franchise. And so my expectation would be that the court would very, very judiciously enforce that in the community, because we have a lot of competitors. As a contractor, I do demolitions all the time, tear buildings down with a trackhoe and load dumpsters and haul them off, bid those jobs as a whole bid operation, not necessarily by the haul. And I directly compete with other contractors who don't have roll-offs, or maybe own their own roll-off and aren't doing it as a service, as a rental. And so all of those things kind of muddy the water as to where the line would be drawn for who has to get a franchise and how I can be competitive in an entire sector of business just because I'm in the rental business also. And so that's why I defined it as two parts. I wasn't trying to be difficult or anything. I just wanted to kind of educate you guys on what we're up against in our part of the business. And you know, I have promised to Pete that I won't get into the residential business, and I don't intend to. I don't want to take the chewing that he got last night at the meeting. So anyway, I love being in the roll-off dumpster business. I like doing dealing with contractors and that kind of thing. I will say this also about the difference, and I mentioned this in my proposal. There's a huge difference in how we approach billing and how we approach service in our businesses. When I rent a dumpster to one person, it's a one-time, one-off rental. I have no expectation that they'll ever come back. I'm trying to earn their favor, obviously, and I want the business in the future, but they have every option in the world right now to go and rent dumpsters from anybody. And so as a non-exclusive hauler, they can get another non-exclusive hauler, they can get another C&D demolition hauler, and they also have options of everybody in the world hauling trash in their pickup trucks and trailers, and there's dump trailers, etc. And so we're not just competing against 6 or 8 guys that happen to have a franchise. We're competing against a whole lot of other people. So when we go to do billing, our billing is very fluid, and so we don't have the ability to contract with BGMU to rent dumpsters on a temporary basis through, a dedicated billing. We typically take a credit card on file, keep it on file, run it for overages on time and tonnage, and then when people's cars don't go and don't work, then we take whatever legal action we can to redeem that money. And so we constantly chase customers trying to get paid. And where we don't have a fixed contract, we do have an agreement for that one haul or for that particular service, and that gives us the legal ability to go after somebody and to charge them. It's not a permanent contract like I would have if I was hauling for a factory or something and signed a year contract and had an established relationship with them where we had ways to deal with those things. So our billing is completely different. I dealt with the billing in both parts of our proposal differently, addressed them as one would be billed, on the 15th of the month and be billed monthly, and it's on a credit account basically, whereas the temporary roll-offs in C&D is completely a different deal. Many of our customers that we rent dumpsters from don't even live here. They're not from town. They're out of state. They're here temporarily doing a job. You deal with contractors that come in and they put a new roof on a commercial building and you rent them 6 dumpsters and they go back out of town and they don't pay you for 2 years. And so we have to deal with that on a regular basis. A couple other small issues that I believe may impact our ability to conduct business in the future. One is the 3% cap on the Labor Bureau statistics, and it was mentioned in our pre-bid that if somebody had a suggestion about how that could be handled differently, and I think there was in some of the proposals some other options. I'm okay with that, using that statistics. However, I put a chart in the proposal just pointing out the last 10 years of increases, and they have been very flat line, 1.5%, 2% for 10 years. But even in the last year, the chart that I showed goes up 4 or 5%. And if you looked at the current chart by the month right now, it's up over 12%. And so they have a cap built into our current franchise agreement of 3% on the increase of cap rates. So if we are locked into a cap rate, then I would ask that the 3% threshold or the cap on the increase be removed and just let it follow the CPI. And so that way it allows us as an industry here in our community to adjust with the economy as it is right now, as volatile as everything is. The other thing was the 10% fee. I included a 10% fee in both parts of our proposal to be paid to the Warren County Court. The 10% fee would include on gross receipts for either type of waste hauling. However, I did put an exemption on there on the 10% that if the court accepted another hauler's bid and they had given a less percent and they were included in it, that it would be negotiated at the same rate so that we were all on the same page. So if I'm paying 10, they're paying 10. If they're paying 2, then I'm paying 2. And I believe that's the first way for it to go if we're going to have a percentage added to it. That's all I have.
Okay. I don't have any questions, Mr. Burke?
My only question is, and this might be a Stan question, could we reduce his liability requirement, insurance liability requirement, from 10 million to 3 million?
The recommendation that was received came from our CAECO insurance folks in Northern Kentucky, Frankfurt, wherever. And it is within the fiscal court's ability to waive certain requirements or requests of the RFP. However, you do so at your own peril. I have referenced in our mandatory pre-bid meetings situations where companies, including some of our existing franchisees locally as well as other places, have incurred judgments against them from $25 to $37 million. The fiscal court is basically hiring these individuals to do the work for them. They would possibly be a party to that. So it's something for you all to consider. It's definitely not a requirement per se, but it does need to be considered.
Any other questions?
I got one. Where are you currently dumping your C&D and material, or you know, using a certain?
In Warren County, or when we're hauling in Warren and Bowling Green, it goes either to Kenway or to TPM at Auburn. We also do a fair amount of diversion when possible. A lot of our customers, especially contractors, have abilities on some projects with equipment to be able to separate and segregate their materials. And so on a demolition job especially, this holds true. I'll ask them to separate their masonry materials and block and concrete. We actually have separate dumpsters that are built heavier that will haul that to, you know, a clean fill site or something, or even at Kenway, they've got, you know, the ability to separate some of those things. We're not a recycling company, but it is less expensive for our customers at the end of the day if we can help them divert stuff and pre-sort it. So not everybody can afford to rent 3 different dumpsters on one job and sort it, but if they're gonna have 15 or 20 dumpsters over the course of a project, it doesn't hurt to have one for metal and one for wood and one for concrete and that kind of stuff. And so it reduces their overall cost. It doesn't cost me any more to dump 10 tons of concrete block than it does to haul 1 ton, and because we have alternate places that we can help them dispose of that, you know, legally and cleanly. But when you have a mixed stream of waste, and you know, whether that's C&D or it's got, you know, junk in the mix of it, then that has to be, you know, has to go to a transfer station, and ultimately it all ends up in the landfill. So you know, our long-term intent as a company, and I guess our dream, more my daughter's than mine, is to build a C&D recycling facility eventually somewhere in the area. But that's a whole nother gamut that is a big piece to bite off, and we're not even prepared for that, you know, in any way. So I would agree with most of the comments that were made last night from the community about the need for recycling, and I think that goes into C&D and into roll-offs as much as it does in curbside recycling. You know, there's a big need for it, but it's going to take a lot of collective energy to get that done.
Any other questions at all?
In your proposal, page 8, it says your fees that you're quoting include delivery, pickup, transport, and disposal cost only. What other fees or items do you anticipate?
Yeah, I wasn't trying to really hide anything. I was just
Okay.
saying that, you know, if I don't own any compactors, but if I was to buy a compactor and we had an ongoing contract, I think in our current franchise agreement, you can contract a different period of time. There's some other stuff, you know, tools there to help offset the cost there. So I was being as specific as I could about what I was including in there. So if I had you know, as a contractor, let's say I went and installed something for them and built a facade, I don't know what's all included, but if I did that as a contractor, that would not fall under my proposal. But the service itself of hauling and transporting and disposing would fall in there.
Okay, so like you got a current temporary account, you bill them, you know, X amount per haul, and that includes everything. You don't have add-ons unless it's something extraordinary, like they destroy the bin or...
We do have insurance, or in our agreement, yeah, we have an agreement if, you know, if they catch it on fire, we've lost dumpsters to fire like everybody has. You know, kids throw fireworks in them and all of a sudden you got a fire. So we do have it built into our agreements that they would pay for those. So yeah, if we recoup the cost of repairs or damage or something, then I wouldn't be including that as my revenue stream. That's just a replacement cost, I would think.
Okay. You know, Warren County has certain reporting requirements that we've got to be in compliance with the state. That's all dependent upon getting information from all of our franchisees. Will you be assume, willing to provide whatever data or information you have
Yeah,
about
so
what you're picking up
we do
and where it's
fill out
going.
the form all the time and send it in, and it's funny you mentioned that. I meant to cover that. Those state forms are geared mostly for the weekly pickup and the dumpsters and, you know, the things that the guys do for trash and residential and commercial. And since we don't have those, we're not tracking them. I also don't have a transfer station where I'm diverting and sorting and anything like that. So 99% of that information, as Stan can tell you, is usually NA down through there. And I was going to make the suggestion that if you're going to make all of this comprehensive, I guess is the way to say it, that we have some sort of amendment to those forms that would actually include what we're hauling, because right now there's not well, they don't even address C&D waste on those state forms, on the quarterlies and annual forms, and so because they don't include that in this whole management. So as far as that goes, if y'all are going to manage the waste, I guess is the best way to say it, then there needs to be a way to manage it and to report it. So yeah, any forms that we have and that need to be filled out would certainly go along with any of that.
Right.
And I would expect that if we're paying a fee, that you guys are doing something for your fee, so you're doing the paperwork too. The other thing is, and the fellow from Recyclops mentioned about education, that's a whole nother part of like the diversion of C&D waste and those kind of things, and how those costs are associated. I think that the county bears some of the burden on the educational side of how things are disposed of, and what kind of container and where they should go and how they should seek that, and not put the burden 100% on the haulers. Right now the haulers bear all the burden and all the liability 100% for the entire industry, and intentionally the RFP and the contracts have removed the liability from the county and put it completely on the shoulders of them. So the partnership here, I believe there needs to be some reciprocity there, and the educational side would be the best way to balance that.
Well, I note your concern, but, yeah, I note your concern.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be difficult about it. I'm just pointing out things that when you go through this process and you really dissect your business, even as we look at it internally, there's ways we can improve. There's ways that the whole situation can, and I would like to just see as much, communication up front in how we're going to go about it, so that maybe our future contract would look a little bit different than it does now, and there wouldn't be any muddy waters. And that's why I said in the pre-bid, if we can include, if we're going to include or combine C&D very, very clearly, then the contract or the franchise agreement would reflect that as clear as possible.
Any other questions? Ms. Alcott? Stan?
I have a question. Pax, how long have you had franchises with Warren County? I think you have residential as well as commercial industrial.
Since 2012.
And all that time, what level of franchise fees have you paid? $1,000 or more, under $1,000?
I would say under 1,000. Yeah,
Under 500?
Probably. It hasn't been much.
Under 200?
I don't know exactly, yeah.
And you persist in being in business, however, over 10 years, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, you've treated us very fair. I agree with that.
Is your equipment similar in nature to the roll-offs that Scott Waste or Republic Services would offer?
Yes, sir.
Do they pay a franchise fee? Are you aware of that?
I have no idea what they pay for any other services, sir.
But they do.
Okay.
How should that make you any different though than them?
Well, with the roll-off business, I know that there's a whole lot of other competitors that I have, that are some here in this room, that don't have franchises at all, that do exactly the same thing that I do every day. And so I have a franchise to be able, in my perspective, the RFP that we proposed to originally 10 years ago would allow us to get into like front load dumpsters and compactors and those kinds of things. And on occasion, There was a time a couple years ago when one of the other haulers had the opportunity to bid on a project hauling a bunch of compactors, and we went, I contacted you and said we were going to haul them as a sub for them, and so the franchise fees for all of those compactors were paid through their franchise, and they subcontracted to us, so it wasn't being duplicated. We did that for the better part of 2 years. We hauled several compactors a week in that contract for them, and so those franchise fees were paid. So yeah, our trucks are the same, and we were hauling the same stuff with the same dumpsters, and as we have always understood the proposals and our original franchise agreement, it included commercial, industrial, solid waste, and so those definitely fell in it. On another occasion, we hauled dumpsters, roll open tops at an apartment complex over by the airport, where another company here had a compactor broke down, and I mentioned that to you and said, how do you want to handle it? And we paid those fees in because it was just somebody's garbage out of an apartment complex. And I guess that fell under the commercial, not necessarily the residential, because it's a big apartment complex. And that lasted for a couple of weeks where we were hauling kind of on an emergency basis for them until their equipment was repaired. So with those things in mind, and knowing that, and balancing it with all the other haulers from Kenway and Blue Moon and Blue Star and Shelby and all the ones that do exactly the same thing. And we've been in business for 10 years, and most of the reaction, or most of the interaction I've had with waste coordinator is when we've had an issue with a dumpster where somebody, we've had people go through the dumpsters and try and recycle on their own and scavenge through a dumpster and make a big mess. And you've sent us pictures of those and those things that we've gone and tried to make whole or get with our customer and make sure that they made right. And there's always people who illegally dump, and we deal with those kind of issues all the time with the coordination of the county. And so I think that we've managed it pretty well. My intent has been to stay out of the day-to-day contractual industrial and residential hauling, and so as we've promoted our business, we've been promoting it as just a temporary roll-off service, and no different than what Kenneth Allen had done for 20-something years, and so we've managed our business the same way.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Mr. Burke, we thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All righty. Shelby Recycling is next.
Good morning. I'm Tim Grable, Shelby Recycling. Been in business, it'll be 13 years this spring. We are mainly metal recycling and got started in the roll-off dumpsters, I guess, we have dumpsters out for metal. Would you bring us one to do a demo? By word of mouth, we have got more contractors. You put one out, next person sees it, you go again. Not our main line of work, but it has built up a lot since we've started it. Other than that, we're pretty simple. Not gonna take up your time. Y'all have any questions?
Have any questions, Mr. Grable?
So if I understand your proposal, it is just for that temporary roll-off kind of
That's
slice
all
of
we
the
do.
business?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Not interested in getting into
No.
kind of annual contracts to serve either commercial or industrial
Not
accounts?
interested in it.
Okay. Do you operate in any other counties besides Warren County?
Very little bit Allen, Warren, Simpson, little bit Butler, and Edison.
And when you have roll-offs that have solid waste in them, where are you typically, what
Goes
sort of
to Kenway.
disposal?
Go to Kenway.
Kenway's your disposal site?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Pretty cut and dry.
That's simple. Good?
Thank you so much, Mr. Grable. All righty. TPM. Mr. Hanks isn't here, okay. No one here from TPM? All right. Okay. We'll move on to Blue Moon Sanitation.
Judge, I would like to note that this transitions us to the residential, commercial, and industrial companies. Mr. Starrett has proposed to do exclusive collection in the city of Bowling Green and recycling as well. He will describe his proposal in detail.
Well, excuse me, my name's Josh Starrett, owner of Blue Moon Porta Pot and Sanitation. We started a portable toilet company, actually purchased a portable toilet company about 10 years ago, and worked on diversifying into solid waste just to kind of diversify our incomes and just get ready for some changes. We've serviced the county of Warren for about 10 years now with portable toilets. We started with the roll-offs and solid waste about 5 years ago, and then we purchased a curbside hauling company in Allen County to diversify more into residential and then into some commercial stuff as well. We currently service Warren County, Allen County, Barron County with commercial, residential, roll-off, portable toilets, and some other services as well. But we're looking at diversifying more into Warren County. We currently offer curbside services as well as commercial front load. No contracts at all right now. Currently just C&D in Warren County, just as an as-needed type basis. We are looking at adding those services. That's been our goal for several years, and that's what we want to do. We did provide some numbers for the city of Bowling Green exclusive. Honestly, I wanted to do that just because it's of interest to us. I know it's a really big pond to jump off into. It's something we can do, we can grow into. I know we've got some pretty good competition here. Scott does a pretty good job, Republic as well. But we're the local option. WKU alumni, live in Allen County, cell phone's always available. So basically, I am the local option. We've done some research on the recycling side of things. The difficult thing for us as a small hauler is where to take the recycling. We pretty much only have one option. There's a location in Louisville that accepts mixed recyclables. Basically just truck it in there and they accept it, but we do have to pay to dispose of it. So it does keep it out of the landfill, but it's an expensive option for us. Unfortunately, it is difficult for us to be competitive. But we are looking at and non-exclusive in the county as well for residential services. That's where we can really strive is on the non-exclusive residential services, the curbside. We also currently, like I said, we currently offer commercial front load services in Allen County and Barron County. We run some routes up there now. We're wanting to expand into Warren County. We have customers ask just about on a weekly basis if we can help them out. Compactor services, different locations, and we've just kind of sort of had our hands tied and really couldn't help them. So that's why we're here asking for a franchise to be able to expand our services into Warren County.
Welcome. Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I got
Yes, sir.
I got a couple questions for you. I appreciate you, appreciate everyone replying. So how, it's a pretty good size contract. How many trucks do you have now, and what do you think additional equipment would you have to handle this?
Right now in Allen County, we run two routes right now with a driver and helper. In Bowling Green, we're expecting, it's growing so fast, but we're expecting to start off with 7 or 8 trucks. We would really prefer to have to transition everybody to curbside that would really alleviate a lot of these labor issues. That's been the problem with service now. It's just these labor issues. But we're looking at 7 to 8 routes.
And
For the city.
What's the, with everything, it's always, there's a container issue and a delivery issue with the trucks. I wonder what the turnaround time is to be able to get that equipment in? Any idea?
The manufacturer that we use for our carts, our trash cans, they actually have the ability to help us mobilize those carts, and they can produce and deliver about 1,000 per day. So with about 25,000 households, that would take realistically about a month to be able to manufacture and distribute those carts.
And what about the trucks?
The trucks, it's a little bit more difficult. What we would have to do is source some used trucks, place new trucks on order, and as those come in, start rotating those trucks. There are lease trucks available. They can be had. They're just not cost effective for us, but we can't get our hands on them. Of course, that would take 30 or 60 days to mobilize those.
Yeah. So I guess the bigger question is, if you were awarded that, when would be the first day you could start? If it's February 1, when would be the first day you could actually start in business?
Realistically, to make it right, but to mobilize the marketing, the billing, get the customers moved around, get the carts placed, is 90 days.
Anyone else? Thank you so much, Mr. Starrett.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, Public Services. Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I was waiting to see if our PowerPoint, there we go, beautiful. I love technology. So I'm Don Collins. I'm the Area Senior Manager for Republic Services out of our area office in Kansas City. I cover a 9-state area, and I can tell you I have fallen in love with Kentucky, and more specifically Bowling Green. It's a wonderful community with warm and wonderful people. And, I gathered from the comments last night from the folks that were really passionate about the solid waste program that there might have been a better time when the program was a little more wonderful. And so Judge Buchanan mentioned 1995. And I was in Pensacola, Florida, helping to launch their first curbside recycle program. That was pretty much the genesis of curbside recycling programs, and gosh, we've come a long way. We've learned so much. We've hit so many speed bumps, and we're smarter and we're better now, but I don't think any of us could have been prepared for what happened in January of 2018. We got to blame it on China a little bit. They implemented a new law, and they rejected and began to deny all recyclables from coming into China, or they raised their standards to a super strict level. When that happened, it put the recycling industry on its knees. And there were curbside recycle collection companies that just went out of business. There were recycling processing companies that closed their doors, and there were cities that had to abandon their recycling efforts. And so we were fortunate enough to be a strong financial company that was positioned to hold our breath until we could get through and find a better way. And so that brings us to today. But in 2018, again, just to understand how bad it was, when you look at this graph, the red bars represent materials that didn't drop in value, they went to negative in value. So before China soared, we would get paid up to $100 for mixed paper, which is the largest amount of volume that a curbside program generates. And at that point, we began to pay for it to go away, anywhere from $50 to $100 a ton. So 75% of curbside materials in 2018, you had to pay to get rid of them. So it was a very bad moment. So what happened? So over the past 3 years since that happened, I can tell you what Republic Services did. As the largest curbside recycling collection company in the industry, we couldn't allow it to end. We couldn't quit. We were too invested. And so we rolled up our sleeves and we found new markets. And we completely turned away. 40% of our materials were going to China at that point. Grandma always talks about don't put all your eggs in one basket. Ooh. So we all of a sudden had to find some other places for that to go. Fortunately, with our buying power and influence, we were able to send most of it back to domestic users, and we had some honest conversations with them. What do we got to do to enable you to take more? And that required some additional investment. So even though the market had crashed, we were still investing millions of dollars in our processing facilities to enable us to deliver a better product to the end users. So as it is today, the market is great. It's actually better than it was back then, before even China soared. And I did hear mention of plastic last night, and yes, plastic was a terrible situation because most of it was going to China. So there just wasn't any place else to take it. So a lot of it went into landfills in different parts of the country. But today it's back. In fact, really interesting, the HDPE, high-density polyethylene, which everyone knows as the clear milk jug, is now worth about $2,000 a ton. Aluminum is running about $1,400. So to give you an idea of how these new emerged markets and this retrofitting of plants in the U.S., the demand has climbed, and we want plastic more today than we've ever wanted it in history. So we are resetting recycling programs across the country. We're continuing to invest more and more money into new facilities and new technology to make these recycling programs durable, where we can weather the next storm. But if we play our cards right, we won't ever have another storm like what China did to us. So looking at the materials, so some of the things we've learned along the way, especially in the last 3 years, desperately trying to keep our programs alive, is that you've got to have clean material. And so some other folks have mentioned when you have a program where you force every resident to recycle, you deliver a cart to every home, you've got some good recyclers and you've got some bad recyclers. And so you see the list on the right. Bad recyclers will put at the minimum those types of materials in there, which are terrible for the MRF. But we also get bags of garbage and who knows what, because they just don't want to do it. So with our program, we've got an all pay but a voluntary participation program. In other words, everyone in the city would pay, it would be included in the rate for curbside recycling, but only those who really want to do it would have to accept a cart and then roll it to the curb every week, and then go through that confusion that sometimes happens in your kitchen where you've got two different containers and you're holding an empty Crisco bottle and you're trying to figure out, do I put it in the garbage or do I put it in the recycling container? What do I need to do next? Some people just don't want to deal with that. And so we understand that. And so our programs going forward are to accommodate the folks that really want to do it. But the people that don't want to do it still, for the greater good of the community, should be obligated to support it financially. Because if without their contribution, then the cost to do it on a one-by-one basis, it becomes too much and it drives down participation. So all pay but voluntary participation is the way to go. We have tons of information to support education, and again, we're a $10 billion, 35,000 employee company. We have 76 processing facilities around the country: Memphis, St. Louis, Jacksonville, Florida, I think one of the largest in the country in Las Vegas and Los Angeles. So we really are experts in processing, collecting, and selling and supporting the markets, the global markets, for the recycling industry. We are committed to sustainability. Safety is a huge part of our 2030 goals to reduce our incident rates on trucks. One of the big focuses there is to get away from rear load trucks. The old-fashioned rear load truck where you have the guy hanging off the back is very dangerous. The garbage collection business as a whole is one of the top 10 most dangerous jobs that you can have in the country. And those rear load trucks, they pinch off your fingers, they pinch off your hands. You will get hit on the back of that truck by a vehicle that will take your legs off or even worse. And so every chance we get to get folks off the back of those trucks and convert them to ASLs, automated side loaders, we are doing that because we want to be safe. Obviously, we're doing it because we want to take care of our people. Operationally, we are focused on reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So when we offer an every other week recycling program, we immediately cut your carbon footprint in half for the program that you're doing to help the environment anyway. So it's the right thing to do, it's the right approach. And also the automated side load trucks can do 800 to 1,000 tons per homes per day, where the rear load trucks you're going to get 500 to 600. So less trucks on the street, less emissions in the air, better service for the community. We are pioneers in biogas at our landfills. We're collecting it, we're generating electricity with it and using it for other things. And so we're focused on increasing that over the next several years into 2030. And we make a lot of contributions to our communities. We give back anywhere from $500 to a school project, wanting to do some kind of environmental program, to $100,000 blight program at a city in St. Louis. All you got to do is go on our website. You don't even have to be our customer, and just make a request and give details as what you're doing and what it's for. And if we feel like it's going to touch people, we've got the funding to do it in most cases. Lastly, I just wanted to share that, look, we're a leader in the industry. We are recognized, we're trusted, and we think that we would love to be, the partner for Bowling Green. You guys, a lot of people don't realize that cities and counties compete with other cities and counties around the country. You're competing for jobs and you're competing for technology and education, and you want folks to move here and establish their life and live here for many years and be good contributors and tax-paying citizens. And a partnership with Republic Services will support your competitiveness, on the national landscape. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Todd Chamberlain, our sales manager. There he goes.
Thank you, Don. Again, I'm Todd Chamberlain, Division Sales Manager with Republic Services. I'm responsible for the Western Kentucky market as well as Southern Indiana. And let me first say again how proud we are and excited to be able to be at a position now after a number of years in preparation for this opportunity. This is not a situation where 60, 90, 120 days ago we started looking at this as an opportunity. We have been investing, researching, planning, and preparing for this opportunity that we have here today. And this local management team, as well as all of the resources and assets that we have available at our disposal, are prepared to provide what we feel is the best overall comprehensive value-added program for the residents of the city of Bowling Green and Warren County. We are an established provider. There is a lot of information that is provided in our proposal about who we are, what we are, but what I want to do for the next few minutes is simply walk through how we came to this proposal, how we came to put this together for the fiscal court and the residents of this community. First and foremost, we listened to what the leadership told us, both good, bad, and ugly. We listened to what had happened in the past. We listened to what the intent is, what we were shared with, what the intent would be going forward. In addition to that, we work day in and day out with with other stakeholders who are private or public entities within the communities. They're telling us what while their business may have one need, they're saying that the things that are important to their employees, to their other residents that they interact with throughout the community, tell them that they want certain things throughout the proposal. With that, and most importantly, we listen to the residents. Not just last night in this meeting, where a lot of that was confirmed in this room by residents who shared information. They shared that they are interested in recycling. It is essential. Private stakeholders such as Logan Aluminum and others shared the importance that they see of having those alternatives and having those diversion programs and having those available for everyone that is a residential. And we are focusing this particular portion of our presentation on the residential portion. We do provide commercial and industrial recycling options that are consistent and contractual through our other businesses. So first and foremost, I want to walk through very quickly here the trash proposal where we would provide weekly curbside service. Everyone that is in the city limits of Bowling Green would be provided one 95-gallon cart. This poly cart is on wheels, has lids, it is attached, and the benefit for everyone in this community is that as that is material is placed in that container and dumped, keeps it all containerized, it reduces rodents, it reduces odors. That is a standard process and an accepted way of managing this waste. We do ask that all the material goes in the cart. In the event that a large family or someone needs more service, we absolutely have an option for that, and for a very minimal additional charge that is available, they can get additional carts. Very similar to the trash program in terms of the collection process is the bi-weekly, every other week curbside service that we will supply to every resident within the city limits of Bowling Green. Again, another 95-gallon cart. We ask that the material be cart content only, similar as the waste. You can get another cart for those who simply want to divert 70% of what they have on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. They can accommodate that within that 2-cart system for the vast majority of the homeowners. In addition, we also have built into our proposal yard waste options. Again, I talked about not just the base core services, but the additional supportive services that are available to the residents, but also have been asked for and have had past practice of being needed in the community. Yard waste, weekly curbside service, either bagged or bundled. We do ask that we would limit that to a 10 bag or bundle limit. In the event that they have more, then they absolutely can contact us and we can contract with them to do something outside of a standard offering. We do ask that those bundles bags be in 4-foot max lengths and or 50 pounds weight limits there on each one of those bundles. Uniquely to our proposal, we are not offering the residents an either or, a yard waste or a bulk collection. We are offering it in addition. So not only does the resident get the trash, they get the recycling offering that we are going to internally manage here in Bowling Green, but we'll also have the yard waste and the bulk collections. Unique to our proposal is a contact from the resident to our company to schedule their bulk item collection. They can do this weekly. That entitles them to 52 bulk items to get rid of over a year's time. That is included in our proposal. You simply contact our company. We communicate with you when that bulk collection will be done. We give you an email confirmation or phone confirmation of when that will occur so that you can put that material out at the curb at the day before, eliminating piles, eliminating aesthetic problems, eliminating piles of material sitting out for scavenging, for debris, for a storm to come through and blow it out from somebody else's yard. You know when it's going to happen. The resident calls us. They know when we're going to be there, and we're going to be there on that very day that is scheduled. And again, 1 item per week, plus the yard waste, plus the recycling, and obviously for those who are interested in only trash, they can do that. Don previously talked about our people. It is the most important thing in our company, aside from safety. The thing that we pride ourselves on is that all of our employees are professionally trained. Not only are they professionally trained, held to high standards, but they also are identified as Republic Services representatives. If we do the work, you'll know that Republic Services is the one. The residents know, the leadership knows, the stakeholders know. Very important. Our stat here is something that we stand behind 100%, even though we're only 99.9% reliable. Okay? So no matter acts of God, labor situation, anything that's a barrier, 99.9% we are available. And also low turnover rates, we're always building bench strength. That is a key to everything that we do. These are just very quick examples of the service trucks that we would use. You're very familiar with these. It's an automated side load. There is our commercial truck that everyone is familiar with, as well as the other pieces of equipment. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Todd Prayer, who is your dedicated municipal manager liaison.
I know we just got the red flag, so I'll go quick on this one. Communication. One of the, I will, I promise, boss. So, we know communication might be a concern of how they might communicate with us and how we might communicate with the residents. Our app is a main communication tool where they can schedule a pickup, they can report a missed pickup if that happens, which isn't very likely, but we can notify them if there's an accident, if a route is delayed, or they can set up payment or even pay one time. They can also do this by phone. We will communicate. We will set up an email address for people that want to sign up for recycling or schedule a bulk item, that they can do it that way if they're more comfortable. Real quick, last night, one lady mentioned she was talking to her friend and said that Republic was back within an hour to pick up something. That is from our new RISE tablets. Every driver has a tablet instead of paper routes sheets. We're able to do real time, locate the closest driver and just say, hey, if you just got a ding message, go back and get this container for us. So that's how we're able to do that. In the future, it'll be like Uber. You can get online and see where your driver is at and see if he's even been at your residence yet. And with that, I'll turn it over to General Manager Joey Dunlap.
Thank you. And I'll move quick as well. So I appreciate the opportunity to stand in front of you today and offer you what we feel like is the most comprehensive proposal. You guys had lined item out particular things that you wanted in your proposal, and we took a careful look at that and have provided everything that you guys have asked for at a very good rate as well. As a part of that, one of the things that we do intend on doing with our current location, I thought it was important to note, is that we are going to, obviously with this agreement, we're going to need to expand our current facilities. If you'll notice on section 1 of our transfer station, we are going to be adding a recycling bunker there. We'll make that available to other haulers if they would like to utilize that for the recycled materials. In section 3, you'll notice the parking lot that we'll be putting in. We're also going to have a manned recycle drop point for individuals that can come in during our business hours, Monday through Friday, to drop off, if they should have something more than just the every other week curbside offering that we have. So with that, we have a 239-point implementation plan. I had planned on going over every single point in great detail with you today, but Stan says I can't, so you guys are safe from dealing with that. But the reason that we do have the 239-point implementation plan is that we don't want you guys to worry about trash. When this transition takes place, it's not on your shoulder, it's on ours. We're going to handle it from here. We're going to take care of it from cradle to grave, communications, flyers, emails, the whole gamut. What those 239 implementation plan points do is they kind of roll up to these specific milestones. Right now, we're looking at a 90-day is what we're going to suggest. Once awarded the bid, we'll need 90 days to be completely up and rolling. So with that being said, I will ask the court for your support on the proposal that we've set forth, and we'll open that up for questions.
I have a question. I'm unclear on glass. Do you all recycle glass?
Currently in the offering that we have not put glass into that, no. We have the option, but once you add glass into it, it becomes a much different animal when it recycles, from a recycling standpoint. We are utilizing Westrock out of Louisville as well, who we work with on other contracts currently. So we do have some flexibility, and if we get into the negotiations and we need to talk further about that, we certainly could, but right now we prefer not to. Glass is very tough on my equipment as well.
If you have another carrier would you be interested in recycling, just recycling, say for my house, and me keep my carrier that I have now? Is that an option?
Would that be city limits or county?
County.
I don't believe so at this point, no.
The man drop-off recyclable point that you would have at the transfer station, you said that would be available for any county resident to bring materials to?
Anybody, yeah, that wants to come in and bring recyclables. We'll have cameras on it, so it will be manned. It is going to be behind the fence as well. So we hope that we can cut down on the contamination that was alluded to last night. So, because, I mean, we felt that pain before as well. You know, and another thing, we've learned a lot about the services that you all have requested. I'm very fortunate to have Blake James, who's my operations manager here in Bowling Green. He actually commuted to my Evansville location for several years, and he was over our City of Evansville contract, which services are like services to what you guys have, but about double the size. In fact, Mayor Lloyd Winnicky last night had sent me a text and encouraged any one of you to please call him, email him, and check us out. If what we're telling you that we can do, and if we tell you our reliability is 99.9%, I think that he will attest to that. So I would encourage any one of you to please call him and check us out.
So the man drop-off, that would be at the transfer station, you said it would be available during your operating hours. What are those generally?
Well, the drivers get started about 4 in the morning, so most people probably don't want to bring recycling there. I think that it would be probably a 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. daily.
And do you have Saturday hours?
Currently, we do not, no.
Okay. And the materials, the recyclable materials, they would be going where?
To West Rock and Louisville.
Okay. Is this curbside recycling program that you're proposing dependent upon being awarded the exclusive franchise for collection, residential collection?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I assumed that, but I just wanted to clarify.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions?
You guys are an easy crowd. Thank you.
I have
we put
one.
together a really good RFP, or you're
I have
kicking us
one.
out already, so.
I have one for you. In the city, you propose to provide the container with the service. Currently, the city residents provide their own containers, or they may rent one from their existing hauler. Out in the county, the container is provided with the service. It seems to be kind of a flip for us here to do that. Out in the city, you get the container under your proposal, but out in the county, you actually pay more for the service, and you also have to pay for your container. What was the rationale there?
Oh, I'm gonna have Dawn address that.
So it's actually some secret garbage math. And so I'll try to make it easy. If you're operating a truck and it costs you $100 an hour to operate that truck, and you're driving that truck through the city and you're picking up 100 homes every hour, then each one of those homes only has to pay $1 of that truck time. But if you're running that same truck out in the county and you're picking up 40 homes per hour, everybody's got to pay a much bigger amount of that truck time. It's just simple, cost of truck time and the density of the routing and the number of homes that we can collect.
Does that also explain the extra cost for the container?
Well, no, the extra cart for the container adds to the cost of, in other words, without the container, the cost would be the rate that we quoted. And so to use a container, there's the higher cost. But we won't service without a container, so they kind of go hand in hand.
Well, correct. But
Again, for the safety of our drivers and the efficiency of the routing and the sustainability and the environmental emission impacts, we're going to run automated trucks. We're going to move fast, safely, and we're going to pick up as many homes as we possibly can with the most efficient approach possible.
Do we know the amount? We were quoted an amount with another company. have you all got an amount for us as far as recycling?
Are you talking about dollar and cent wise?
Yeah.
We propose $24.75 all in. That's for the curbside recycling, including carts. That's for the waste, weekly pickup, that's yard waste, bulk item, that's everything that you all asked for, as well as a recycling drop-off site at our centrally located transfer station here in Bowling Green. If you choose not to do recycling, then our rate is $20.75 and includes everything but the recycling piece.
Say that again.
Sorry, man, I'm still operating under the red card there. I probably went way too fast. It's $24.75 is what we're proposing to the city of Bowling Green residency exclusive. Yes, $24.75. That does include everything you all had asked for, the curbside recycling every other week, the weekly weight trash pickup for residents, yard waste, bulk item waste as well, and then also the recycling drop-off point at our centrally located transfer station.
So we get two 95 gallon containers, two separate containers, one for
Right.
trash.
And it's $24.95.
For $24.75.
$24.75.
And the sanitation, Judge, is $20.75. If you take the recycling out of it, picking up waste in the city of Bowling Green is $20.75.
And
That's
still-
that's where I lost you. I thought you said 27.
No.
Gotcha.
No, 20, I mean, if
All
you'll
right.
say yes, okay, but no, it's $20.75, and it does not include the recycling, but it does still include the yard waste and the bulk item. Those
Gotcha.
things don't go away.
Okay.
Yes,
sir.
I just want to confirm, you all did also include numbers for non-exclusive county pickup?
We did within the franchise agreement, yes.
For garbage, yard waste, and bulk only.
But no
Not for
recycling
recycling, correct.
for the county?
Right.
Was that something that if you consider if you come back or whatever, I just, I mean,
Yeah, if we were awarded the exclusive contract, then certainly there are areas that we would consider offering recycling for. But again, to Don's point, at some point when you drive a vehicle, and every hauler in here understands that when you drive a truck for an hour and you only get 5 stops in that hour, you become very, very inefficient. You've got a $400,000 piece of equipment that picked up $10 worth of waste. That's not a good financial decision really for any of us, that's involved here, so.
but make sure I understand, the $20.75 would also be potentially offered out in the county too? You're just doing city only for this?
No, that's city only. We provided pricing for non-exclusive county residents.
Okay.
Okay. No other questions. Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Good presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. Would you like to have a short break? All right. We're going to break for 10 minutes. 10 minutes.